Hi, Terry from Muck-truck here. Today I'm going to show you how to change a transmission on a Muck-truck or a Max-truck product to make it easier for you guys to follow the instructions and see how to do it. So the first thing we're going to do is drain the fuel from the tank, just to make sure that when we tip the machine upside down, the fuel doesn't drain onto the floor. So to make it easier for myself, I put it on 2 pallets, and then I'm going to tip the machine forward, leaving the bucket in place so that the bucket is the platform in which to raise the machine off the ground. And you can do this against a wall, against a tree, whatever you need. Now that the machine is balancing on its bucket, now we've got the wheels off the ground. We're going to take the wheels off, we're going to take the bottom plate off, and we can get access right to the transmission itself. The next thing I'm going to do is remove these power drive wheels, the 2 4-inch wheels, one either side. And the reason I'm removing it is it's easier to get it assembled afterwards, to get the 10-inch wheels onto the transmission, and they're out the way, otherwise they'll just swing. So to remove those, these star caps are 19 millimeters, and you've got to rip them off basically and put new ones on there afterwards. They're just held on, they're not threaded on, so we just got to rip them off. So this is how I'm going to do it. Get a screwdriver behind, pry it, and then see if you can get a mold grips or something to go in there to just pull it off. And then they just slide off the shaft. Just give them a bit of a wiggle and they slide off the shaft, one either side. We'll do the other side next. Just get the screwdriver in there, open up a gap, get a pliers or a mold grips like this, get it in there and then just try and rip it off. And you'll see that the inside of these are castellated, like this. So when they push onto the shaft, they just grip automatically when you push them onto the shaft, and they just rip into the metal. Let's remove this out of the way. That makes access to the underside of the machine a lot easier. So next thing we're going to do is remove the stuff that's linked to the transmission itself. So we've got a belt, we've got a linkage, and we've got 2 cables. And let's get those out of the way. There's a bolt right in here that goes through the chassis, and what that does is that holds the belt close between the pulley, onto the pulley. So what we need to do is just unloosen the nut, and that'll allow it to move out of the way to get the belt off. I should allow that belt to go through there now. Once I get him up. So now we have 2 bolts that go into the back of the transmission. These are tapered bolts, and in the transmission when it's brand new, this is not threaded. So these need to thread themselves into the transmission. So we're going to remove those and then loosen these off enough just to move the torque stay out of the way. If you look, those are tapered at the end. So they self-tap into the cast in here. So the only thing holding the transmission in place now are these 8 bolts. They go into the chassis, and there's 2 inside ones and 2 outside ones. If you undo the inside ones first, which are the most awkward ones, then the outside ones you can do from right at the outside of the chassis. Makes it much easier, and you can hold it in place without taking all the nuts off. That is the transmission undone, and it's just holding in place on the gravity now. Once I lift it off, it'll just lift off these bolts, and these bolts will fall out of the way. So the things that we need to swap from an older transmission to a new transmission are these. So this is the wheel hub, fits onto a shaft. There's a key there, and you slide it on. You pop the E-clip in, which is just like a half round washer, and then just push this cap over the end. So that's that part. Do that both sides. Then we have the brake arm link, which fits in here. We're just going to transfer it over to a new transmission. This is the transmission pulley. It has a keyway and a woodruff key. Now there's also a bolt which goes onto the woodruff key to hold it tight. So when you put that on, you've got to make sure you do up the bolt afterwards underneath the side of the transmission there. And then we have something that the guys call the penguin, because it looks like a penguin. And this fits so that the square part fits onto the shaft here. And this little noggin is facing out from the transmission. And then you tighten it up on the top with an 11mm wrench spanner. So now that we've put all the old parts onto the new transmission, we're going to put it back into the machine. At our place, we put the linkage on first and then just thread it up through, but you could have that undone and fit it on later if you want to. I'm going to show you how to adjust that. And we also have the brake arm link on there first, so we just feed it up through. So you can just rest it there. Now, if you wanted to, you could put the belt on now and feed that up through, which will make it easier then for tightening up the bolt afterwards. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to put the bolts into the chassis to hold the chassis to the transmission. So these are the reinforcement plates for the chassis. And they basically just spread the load. Instead of a bolt just holding the load, it spreads the load over that lug on the outside of the chassis just to stop it from cracking. So now that the chassis is fixed into place, the one thing to be careful of is that these tapered bolts, you don't over tighten them. They've got to be snug and tight, but don't over tighten them. And then make sure that the other end of the torque stay is tight on the chassis. This stops the transmission from rotating when you're using it, so it has to be tight enough to hold the transmission square, but not too tight that you rip the threads out of this casting, because this is just an aluminium casting. So now we're just going to tighten up our components and get it all back together again. The videos on our YouTube channel will show that you can how to replace the belt. So they're already there on our YouTube channel, and how to adjust the cables. But I'm going to do it. This is going to be on a time lapse, and we'll show you how to adjust it. So this is the gear change linkage, and it has a ball joint on both ends, and sometimes these ball joints wear away over a long period of time, and I'm going to show you how to adjust this. So we connect it to the penguin down the bottom end, and you want an equal amount of threads both ends of the rod, and we have to adjust it in or out to suit where this is in neutral. Now we're going to put the gearbox into neutral first. So we lift the penguin all the way up, and then we click it down one click only. Oh. So we want it to go down one click. There, like that. So we know that's neutral. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the ball joint on this end through the plate and make sure it's square, and then we've got to check that the gear lever at the top is aiming up with a neutral position, which is straight back. Come around this side. And if it's not quite lining up, it needs to come this way a little bit. So I'm saying this is a straight line. That's about the neutral position there. So what I'm going to do is turn this, okay, and turn the rod so that we've got equal amount of threads top and bottom, so it lines up. So a little bit more. There. So that's nice and square. Double check that that's in a straight line to the decal on the top, which is neutral, straight back. What we're going to do is tighten this up on here, making sure we've got equal amount of threads on both ends of the rod, and then we're going to tighten up the lock nut afterwards. So we'll put the washer on. Set the lock on. And tighten that one up on there. So this is an awkward size. This is 11 millimeters on the inside of that ball joint. Now before locking up the lock nut, we want to just double check that the gear change linkage is straight up, which is in the neutral position in a straight line with the chassis, which I can see from here it is. And then we can tighten up the lock nuts. And make sure that that has a little bit of movement in it to make sure that that ball isn't always fixed onto one side. Both ends move. That's a nice ball joint there. Click it to the outside. Click it one click in. And it needs to be in a straight line. That means neutral position is in a straight line on the gear shifter. And then this is set up correctly. So now we're going to assemble the bottom plate and put the wheels back into position. So now, before putting the power drive wheels on, the triangle middle wheels, we're going to put the machine back down onto its wheels, the four wheels, because it's easier to do it on the floor than it is to do it up on a stand like this, for me. So I'm going to pull it over. I'm not going to inflate the tires. I'm going to leave the tires deflated and then get the power drive wheels into position. So the easiest way to do this that I find is to pressurize it and rock the machine backwards and forwards while you're pressurizing the wheel inwards. So as you press it in, using either your knee, I use my knee, or somebody holding it, or whichever way you want to do it, just rock those wheels so they rotate, and then you can usually squeeze this in. And if you can't squeeze it in, you can always let this tire down. So it takes a bit of pressure. Let me just going to put some pressure on that at the moment. Hopefully it'll work. I'm not saying it will, but hopefully it will. You see the shaft yet? See the shaft? There we go. Ready? So with the shaft sticking through, new star cap, or you can straighten up your old star cap if you got it off without buying a new one. Put it at an angle and then give it a knock with a rubber mallet. Put it at an angle like that and then give it a knock and it's on. So an angle. So that's how you change a transmission on a Max truck, Muck truck or H-Max. Please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and if there are any other videos that you'd like us to do, just let us know. Drop us a comment, send us an email, and if we can do it, we'll do it for you. Thank you. Bye-bye.